The Bible Study Podcast, episode 669. Today, the Bible Study Podcast continues the study of Genesis with chapter 25. Welcome to the Bible Study Podcast. I'm your host, Chris Christensen. We finish the story of Abraham today with the death of Abraham, and then we'll continue on with not just Isaac, but with Isaac's sons. Chapter 25, Abraham had taken another wife whose name was Keturah. She bore him Zimran, Jokshan, Medan, Midian, Ishbak, and Shua. Jokshan was the father of Sheba and Dedan. The descendants of Dedan were the Asherites, the Letushites, and the Laomites. The sons of Midian were Ephah, Epher, Hanok, Abidah, and Eldah. All these were descendants of Keturah. Abraham left everything he owned to Isaac, but while he was still living, he gave gifts to the sons of his concubines and sent them away from his son Isaac to the land of the east. Abraham lived 175 years. Then Abraham breathed his last and died at a good old age, an old man and full of years, and he was gathered to his people. His sons Isaac and Ishmael buried him in the cave of Machpelah near Mamre, in the field of Ephron, son of Zehor the Hittite, the field Abraham had bought from the Hittites. There Abraham was buried with his wife Sarah. After Abraham's death, God blessed his son Isaac, who then lived near Beer Lahai Roi. And so we wrap up this arc of Abraham. As we say, this story is a continuing story. So it started in Genesis before Abraham, and it will finish without him, as all our stories will end at some point, and the story of God and his people will continue on after us. I don't know if there's a lot more to say about Abraham. We've been talking about him for a while. It's interesting that at the end, when he dies, both Isaac and Ishmael are together and bury him. Neither one of them a young man at this point, though not nearly as old as Abraham. But apparently Ishmael is not so far away or so out of the life of Abraham that Ishmael and Isaac don't cooperate in this venture of burying their father. And then we have these other sons and daughters who we don't really talk about. They really don't come up that often, but we will see some of their descendants later on, like the Asherites, but they're not a key portion of this story because, as God told Abraham, we're really going to focus on this promise that God made to Abraham, who is going to go through the lineage of Isaac. And so we jump into Isaac's story. But first, we're going to talk about Ishmael a little bit. We're going to deal with Ishmael's sons. This is the account of the family line of Abraham's son Ishmael, whom Sarah's slave Hagar the Egyptian bore to Abraham. These are the names of the sons of Ishmael listed in the order of their birth. Nebaioth, the firstborn of Ishmael, Kedar, Adbeel, Mibsam, Mishma, Duma, Massa, Hadad, Tema, Jetur, Naphish, and Kadamah. These are the sons of Ishmael, and these are the names of the 12 tribal rulers according to their settlements and camps. Ishmael lived 137 years. He breathed his last and died, and he was gathered to his people. His descendants settled in the area from Havilah to Shur, near the eastern border of Egypt. As you go towards Ashur, they lived in hostility toward all the tribes related to them. And so the bad news here is what we get with some of the prophecies about Ishmael when he is young, that he would struggle with and he would contend with these other people. So while he and Isaac do bury Abraham together, apparently there is a lot of hostility between Isaac and Ishmael, between Ishmael probably and the later sons from Abraham's second wife. And so they don't always get along, and families sometimes are like that. Sometimes there is drama. And certainly the fact that Isaac has a special place is probably one of the reasons why there's that drama. And we'll see that theme come up again in a couple generations when we deal with Joseph. Jacob and Esau. This is the account of the family line of Abraham's son Isaac. Abraham became the father of Isaac, and Isaac was 40 years old when he married Rebekah, daughter of Bethuel the Aramean from Padam Aram, and sister of Laban the Aramean. Isaac prayed to the Lord on behalf of his wife because she was childless. The Lord answered his prayer, and his wife Rebekah became pregnant. The babies jostled with each other, and she said, "Why is this happening to me?" So she went to inquire of the Lord. The Lord said to her, "Two nations are in your womb, and two peoples from within you will be separated. One people will be stronger than the other, and the older will serve the younger." When the time came for her to give birth, there were twin boys in her womb. The first to come out was red, and his whole body was like a hairy garment, so they named him Esau. After this, his brother came out, with his hand grasping Esau's heel, so he was named Jacob. Isaac was 60 years old when Rebekah gave birth to them. The boys grew up, and Esau became a skillful hunter, a man of the open country, while Jacob was content to stay at home among the tents. Isaac, who had a taste for wild game, loved Esau, but Rebekah loved Jacob. Once, when Jacob was cooking some stew, Esau came in from the open country famished. He said to Jacob, "Quick, let me have some of that red stew. I'm famished." That's why he was also called Edom. Jacob replied, "First sell me your birthright." "Look, am I about to die?" Esau said. "What good is the birthright to me?" But Jacob said, "Swear to me first." So he swore an oath to him, selling his birthright to Jacob. Then Jacob gave Esau some bread and some lentil stew. He ate and drank, and then got up and left. So Esau despised his birthright. So there's a couple places there where we're talking about names, and we need to explain what they meant. So Esau means hairy, so that's how Esau gets his name. Edom means red, and that's his nickname, Edom, and he will become the line of the Edomites. That is, the descendants of Esau will be the Edomites. And then Jacob means he grasps the heel, and Hebrew idiom for he deceives. And that is interesting. We'll see that more next week. So Jacob has this reputation as a little bit of a mama's boy for sure, not the outdoorsman that his brother is, and a little bit of a deceiver, a little bit of a schemer. And we'll see that just even as he's thinking ahead of his brother here. His brother comes home and says, "Hey, give me some stew." And he doesn't say, "Well, sure, I'll sell it to you," or he doesn't, "I'll sell it to you for a sheep," or he doesn't say, "Give me some of the meat and I'll give you some stew." He doesn't say, "Sure, here's some stew." He says, "Sure, what I want that you have is your birthright." And apparently Esau put no value on that. He was willing to sell his birthright as the firstborn, not first by much, but the firstborn for a meal of stew. Now, he probably wasn't really about to die, but he was very hungry, and he really, it says, despised his birthright. He didn't hold it in high regard, such so that he was willing to sell it. And that's going to come up again when next week we deal with not just a little scheming by Jacob, but some deception. And remember, we've got the two sons and the two parents, and each one apparently has picked a favorite. And that is going to cause some trouble between the two. And this is really all we're going to learn about Isaac, is that he had two sons and that the Lord blessed him. We're going to deal with him next week before he dies, but he's already going to be an old man. And so, as with Ishmael, we don't really hear much about his life, and Isaac, we don't hear much about his life, but we're going to focus on this guy, Jacob, because Jacob is going to change his name later on, and it's going to be a very familiar name. But I'm getting ahead of the story. Come back next week, and we'll talk more about that. If you have any questions, send an email to host@thebiblestudypodcast.com, or better yet, leave a comment on this episode at thebiblestudypodcast.com. And thanks so much for listening.
Hi, friend. Are you stressed? Maybe even worried about so many needs around you that you've forgotten you are worth taking care of too? Well, I'm Bonnie Gray, the host of Breathe, the Stress Less podcast. I want to invite you to join me as I share practical tips based on science, inspired by God's Word, to help you spark joy and restore God's peace and love to your soul. Subscribe now and go to lifeaudio.com.